This is week 9, introductory activity, problem solving with percentage. Here's question 1. Marty placed $4,000 into an account, earning 4% simple interest. At the end of the year, he moved the total amount to a new account, earning 5% interest. Determine the amount of money Marty would have at the end of the second year. So since they mentioned simple interest, we end up using the simple interest formula. Okay, which is I is equal to PRT, where P is equal to 4,000, R is equal to 4%, and T is equal to 1. The rate here as a decimal is 0.04. So we wrote out our formula, we assign values to the variables in the formula, and then we plug into the formula. And now we have plugged into the formula, we do our computation, we multiply, we end up with $160. So the total at the end of the first year is going to be the principal plus the interest, P plus I. 4,000 plus 160 is $4,160 at the end of the first year. So they roll this amount over into the second year using the same formula. P becoming $4,160. The new rate is 5%, as a decimal is 0.05, and T is equal to 1. We plug into our formula and multiply. The amount of interest is multiplying out here is $208. So the total is going to be the principal plus the interest, which is $4,368. Excuse me. So, next one here is question 2. Trinidad loves cherry tomatoes so much that after returning from Safeway with some cherry tomatoes, she eats 35% of the cherry tomatoes she just bought. The next day, she eats 35% of the remaining cherry tomatoes and continues to eat another 35% each day. What percent of the cherry tomatoes will Trinidad have left after 4 days? Round your answer to the nearest whole percent. So, assuming that she has 100% of the tomatoes in the beginning, she eats 35% on that first day, what's remaining is 65%. So on that second day, she eats another 35% of the tomatoes. So what's remaining is 65% of that 65. So it's 0.65 times 65 gives me 42.25. That's how much remains. But then she eats another 35% of those. And what remains is 65% of those. So as a decimal, multiply that out and get the amount that remains after the third day, which is 27.4625, looks like. After the third day, that's what remains. But she eats 35% of those, and what remains is 65%. So how many is that? So 0.65 times 27 is 17.85. Round is to the nearest whole percent is 18%. And that's question 2. Question 3. If the first chapter in the book is 22 pages and makes up 2% of the book, how many pages does the entire book have? Okay, so I'll set up a proportion here. So I know that 22 represents 2%, and you have 2 over 100. To find the whole, I cross multiply and divide it. And I ended up with 1,100 pages for my answer there. And that was question 3. The next one is question 4. At a restaurant, the bill comes to $80. If you decide to leave a 16% tip, how much is the tip? So I'll set up a proportion here. So a proportion here, 16 over 100. and I want to find the part, the amount of the part, how much is the tip going to be. So I cross multiply and divide and end up with $12.80. That's the amount of the tip. Okay, and that was question 4. Question 5. Margot borrows $1,200, agreeing to pay it back with 4% annual interest after 10 months. How much interest will she pay? So I'm using a simple interest formula. I is equal to PRT. It's 10 months here, it's the time period. So I is equal to PRT, T has to be in some form of years. So in this case, as a fraction, 10 out of 12. So when I plug in, I have 1,200 times R, which is 4%, as a decimal, 0.04 times 10 over 12. I is equal to 40. So the amount of interest is $40. Number 6. If a woman making $31,000 a year receives a cost of living increase of 2.4%, what will her new salary be? So I'm using a simple interest formula where P is 31,000, R is 2.4 as a decimal. That's going to be 0.024, and T is equal to 1. So I wrote up my formula, I assigned values to the variables in the formula, then I plugged into the formula. And next, I'll do my computation. I do my computation and up with interest being $744. So the new salary is going to be the principal plus the interest. $31,000 plus $744 gives me $31,744. And that's the answer to number 6. Number 7, a retiree invests $7,000 in a savings plan that pays 5% each year. At the end of the first year, how much will she have? So I'm using a simple interest formula. I is equal to PRT, where P is 7,000, R is 5% as a decimal, is 0.05, and T is equal to 1 for 1 year. Then I plug into the formula and I multiply, and I end up with the interest being $350. So the total is going to be the principal plus the interest. 7,000 plus 350 gives me $7,350. That's how much she'll have at the end of that first year. Number 8. Okay. The U.S. Weather Bureau has a station on Mauna Loa in Hawaii that has measured carbon dioxide levels since 1959. At that time, there were 306 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. In 2005, the figure was 381 parts per million. Find the increase in carbon dioxide levels and the percent of increase, the 2 decimal points. So there's the formula I'm using there for the percent increase. New value minus the old value divided by the old value. So my old value was 306, my new value was 381. And I plug into my formula and I simplify. The percent increase is 24.51%. Okay, and that was question number 8. Question 9. The sales tax rate for South Lake is 7.05%. Okay, what is the amount of tax on a $15,800 car in South Lake? So the amount of tax is going to be the rate times the principal. In this case, the rate is 0.0705. The principal is $15,800. So I multiply these together. I end up with $1,113.90. That is the amount of tax. So what is the total cost? So the final cost is going to be the principal times 1 plus R, in this case here. That's going to give me the car and automatically add the tax into it. So P is 15,800 and R is 0.0705. I end up multiply together $16,913.90 for that one there. Then they go to another county, Morgan County, where the rate is 5.95%. What is the amount of tax on the same car in Morgan County? So Multiplying here, the amount of tax is going to be R times P, with R is 0.0595 and P is 15,800. The amount of tax in this case is $940.10. What is the final cost going to be in Morgan County? Well, using the same final cost is going to be P times parentheses 1 plus R, 15,800, 1 plus 0.0595. And multiplying here, 1.0595 times 15,800 gives me $16,740.10. How much money would you save by going to Morgan County? Saving is just going to be the difference between the two counties, which is $173.80. This is question 10. We want to increase the quantity Q by 240%. What is the correct expression for that? So the result here, we're going to have Q plus 240% added to it. So I multiply Q times 100% will give me the Q back, and then I add 240 to it. So as in decimal form, I have 1 here and plus 240. So I will have to say Q times 340 will be the formula they're looking for, and that's the answer. And that was number 10. This is number 11. Another one like it. In this case, it's a decrease. So if I have Q times 100, it will give me the original value back. In this case, we're decreasing by 7%. So I'll be subtracting 7, which gives me 93%. And as a decimal, it would be 0.93. And that's the answer there. This is budget, the Miller budget, and this is number 12. If the Millers spend $16,000 on housing, what is their total budget? So from the pie chart, we see that housing represents 30% of their budget. So I set up a proportion here, 1,600, and I have 30 over 100 here. To find the whole, I can cross multiply and divide, which gives me $5,333.33, and that's the answer there. Number 13, you deposit $500 into an account earning 8% interest for 3 years. Find the future value, and which is A, and the interest earned in each of the following compounding frequencies. Use the bankers rule for daily compounding. So daily, bankers rule day N is 360. So along here I set up, and for annually, number of compound interest is applied once in a year. For semi-annually, interest is applied twice. For quarterly, interest is applied 4 times. For monthly, interest is applied 12 times in a year. And daily, it's applied every day. And this here is the first formula is our compound interest formula. And this next one here is our interest formula where you have the future value minus the principal. Okay. This is one I did here. Didn't do all of them, just did one of them. So the first thing I did was I wrote out my formula. And I have the future value is A, P is the principal. The interest rate is R is 8%, as a decimal is 0.08. N is equal to 4 in my case, that's quarterly. And T is equal to 3. So I wrote up my formula. I assigned values to the variables in the formula. The next step is I went ahead and plugged into the formula. Okay. And I took care of that exponent. 3 times 4 is 12. Okay. And then I start taking care of what's in the parentheses. So I have 0.08 divided by 4, which is 0.02. And then I add 1 to it, so I have 1.02 raised to the 12th power, which gives me this number here, 1.2682 times 500, and it gives me the future value of $634.12. To find the amount of interest, it's going to be the future value minus the principal, which is the starting amount. So $634.12 minus 500 gives me an interest of $134.12. And that's it for that part of it there. I just did one of them here, quarterly. I did this one right in the middle. Okay. And I believe that is it. Yes, that's it. Have a great day.